obviously you have to be careful swallowing. So obviously you're making wudu, like you just make it, but be careful obviously not to swallow water, and like when you rinse your mouth.
So Rasulullah, for example, in the month of Ramadan, normally when we do wudu, we gargle, and we should exaggerate in gargling, except in the month of Ramadan, because water might just go into the stomach, that will break the fast.
I'm not sure if I missed it. What about using toothpaste? Are you
Rasulullah said in a hadith that the bad odor that comes from the fasting person is more beloved to Allah than the smelling misk. I'll come back to this hadith in a bit. This is Rasulullah in the month of Ramadan, he used to do siwak. He used to brush his teeth. In fact, there is a hadith which is narrated by Amir ibn Rabi'ah. رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ما لا أحصي يتسوق وهو صائم. I saw the Prophet ﷺ on numerous occasions that he would use the toothstick to brush his teeth while he was fasting. This hadith is in Bukhari. Now, that's with the toothstick, and that doesn't have any kind of normal ones. I know that you get flavored ones these days as well. Doesn't have any kind of extra flavor or taste to it. You can do that. What about toothpaste? The scholars that have who've discussed it, a lot of them, they said, in fact most of all of them in fact, they said that it's best to avoid toothpaste, but it is permissible. It is permissible. You may use toothpaste and toothbrush to brush your teeth, but you have to be very careful that nothing goes in. Because with the normal siwak, you don't have any kind of anything left. When you brush your teeth and when you spit out when you clear your mouth, nothing else remains. But with the toothpaste, you get the taste remains for a while. So you have to make sure that nothing goes in. So you can use toothbrush and toothpaste, that's not a problem, but you have to be very careful, very, very careful. So it's permissible. But the hadith that I mentioned earlier on about the bad odor, Imam Shafi'i, radiallahu anhu, he said he personally felt that it is makruh to brush your teeth, particularly after midday, because if the smell, this is his reasoning, if the smell is dear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why would you want to get rid of it? Okay, but of course that's his opinion. Any other question?
Can you swallow your saliva?
Yeah, you can swallow your saliva, but people shouldn't intentionally gather this saliva and then swallow it. That's something that one shouldn't do, but you can generally swallow your saliva. That's no problem. I know some people in the Asian country, I don't know from where they got this. They don't swallow this saliva at all. They will gather the saliva in their mouth and they will spit all over the place. And I remember when I used to go to school, all Asian Muslims there, and we used to sit in the classroom at the back of the class, we flooded with saliva. And on numerous occasions, the head teacher had to get someone from outside to talk about this issue, but still people continue to do this. I don't know if that practice is still around, but if it is, people need to be told that this is wrong. Who's hand? Yeah.
While you're fasting, if you bleed, does it?
No, it doesn't affect you. Now, Prophet ﷺ used to do cupping in the month of Ramadan. Okay, that's fine. Likewise, if you want to have blood tests in the month of Ramadan, that's fine. But only time is not fine if you think that it's going to make you weak. Okay, if you know by having, and if bleeding makes someone so weak that they can't continue to fast, obviously in that situation they become like the sick person. So they would just break their fast and make up another day. But generally bleeding doesn't affect your fast.
Does passive smoking have any effect on your fast?
Passive smoking? I don't know, to be honest. Because smoking does affect the fast. Yeah. Passive smoking means being next to somebody who's smoking. I think if you inhale the smoke, I'll find out. I don't know actually, because I haven't come across this situation. Yeah.
Famous question. 8 rakat or 20 rakat?
Okay, Taraweeh, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, obviously in the time of the Prophet himself, he didn't pray Taraweeh the way that we pray today. They used, in the narration we find that he prayed 1 or 2 nights and people started to gather behind him, and on the 3rd night he didn't turn up. And the reason why he explained later afterwards is that he feared that it would become obligatory. Okay, during the time of the Khalif Abu Bakr, people would pray individually, collectively. It wasn't the way it is now, well organized, everyone does it in the mosque. And this remained until the time of Umar. It was during the time of Umar, when you entered one of the mosques, he saw people, group of people praying there, some individually, some collectively, and he looked all over the place. And he gathered the people, and they prayed behind one imam. And from there, the Taraweeh started, as it is now. And he said, what a beautiful innovation this is, bid'ah. He used the word bid'ah. But the word bid'ah in the wording of in the mouth of Umar is not the same bid'ah as we understand it, because it is not a bid'ah. Bid'ah is something which doesn't have a precedence. The fact that Prophet ﷺ prayed in congregation with his companion shows that there is precedence and it is permissible, and it is a sunnah to pray collectively in Jama'ah. So it is not a bid'ah. So it's just an expression that he used. And from that time they've been praying 20 rak'ah. There's evidence that the Sahaba they prayed 20 rak'ah. And this is the view of the majority of the scholars. And in some of the other schools, like in Malik school, you find that it's more than 20. I think it's over 32 or 33 rak'ah of Taraweeh that they recommend. The truth of the matter is there is no fixed number for Taraweeh. There is no fixed number. Some people I know, they fight over this and they say it's bid'ah because there is a hadith of our mother Aisha radiallahu anha. If I could find it here. She was asked about the prayer of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what did she say? She said the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not pray. She said, "Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi fil masjidi wa salla bi." No, sorry, not this one. There is another one. If I could find it here. I can't find it here. Anyway, the hadith is basically he didn't pray in Ramadan or outside Ramadan more than 11 rak'ah. This is the hadith, and this is obviously she's talking about the tahajjud. The tahajjud. Rasulullah 11 rak'ah meaning the 8 rak'ah of tahajjud and then 3 rak'ah of witr. So he didn't pray more than that, whether it was in Ramadan or outside of Ramadan. So, and this is some people have taken this hadith and said, this is the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, and she's clearly saying that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam only prayed 8 rak'ah of Qiyamul Layl. So, it must be wrong. And therefore, it is wrong to pray more than that. But this kind of, if somebody wants to pray 8 rak'ah, that's fine. There is nothing to say that they can't pray 8 rak'ah. If somebody wants to pray 20, then that's fine, because that's, it's been the practice of the Salaf and they used to pray that. The truth of the matter is, as many of the scholars have said and written, the truth of the matter is there is no fixed number for Taraweeh. If people want to pray more or less, even if somebody, they don't find, they feel so tired for whatever reason, and they want to pray even less than 8, then there's nothing wrong in that. Is that okay? Does that answer your question? So there is no fixed number, but it has been the practice of the early Muslims from the early times to pray 20 rak'ah. And in the Haramain, in Saudi Arabia, in the Haramain they pray 20 rak'ah. But in some of the smaller mosques they pray 8 rak'ah. Okay, so there's variation in Saudi Arabia. In the Middle East, a lot of the mosques I found, in fact I stayed in Amman, the local mosque they used to pray 8 rak'ah. But then again I think in another mosque that I went they pray 20 rak'ah. So alhamdulillah, they have an understanding in those countries. But I don't know here, and I think, in some other countries, people have come across a situation where people are fighting over the number of rak'ah, and that's wrong. And there is a very beautiful thing about Imam Hassan al-Banna. Hassan al-Banna was the Mujaddid, one of the revivalist Imams of our time. And the man was a man of knowledge and wisdom, and he really shows. He went into a mosque, and people were fighting over this very issue. 20 rak'ah, people said, Prophet prayed 20. Other people said, no, but the Sahaba, the Prophet prayed 8. And the others saying, the Salaf and the Sahaba and the Salaf, they prayed 20, and they're fighting over this. So what did Hassan al-Banna say? He said, what is the ruling of Salatul Taraweeh? And they said it's Sunnah. And he said, what is the ruling on brotherhood? To be united and as one ummah and to have the brotherhood among you. So what is the ruling on that? He said it's fard. He said, are you going to destroy a fard because of a sunnah? So this was his thing. We shouldn't fight. It is fard for us to be united, and not to become divided. If things like this divide us, then it's better for us to go. If we can't come to an agreement, then it's best for us to pray at our homes. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Is it right that in Ramadan you can pray witr in congregation?
Yeah. You can pray with it.
What if you want to pray more prayers after, say, when you get home or something? And
If you want to pray tahajjud after you go to home, you can not pray in congregation. You can delay it after the tahajjud. That's, you don't have to. You don't have to pray with the jama'ah. You can delay that.
Do athletes and sort of sports personalities, do they get some sort of special fatwa or something?
I don't know.
I read something once about footballers getting special fatwa for not fasting.
I don't know. You need to ask them if they got any special fatwa. But what I do know, I think Shaykh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, I think in his Fatawa Muasir, he talks about those people who work, as a livelihood, as a way, people whose livelihood depends on work, which is very difficult, like people who work in the mine, or the work is so difficult, and that's basically without the money, without this job, and that's the only job they know and they can do. For such people who find it difficulty to observe the fast, and they say that they can break their fast and make it up afterwards. It's just like somebody who's unable to continue fasting. But with athletes and all that, I don't know. Have they got a fatwa on athletes? It's something that they brought about on themselves. They have a choice of taking part or not taking part in the games. Allahu Alam. I don't know. If somebody is giving them fatwa, I don't know about it. Yeah.
You talked about qada and replacing one fast. When someone was obviously heedless back in the days and they miss a fast due to intentionally eating, and they perhaps don't remember how many times they did that over the past during Ramadan, how many periods of Ramadan they've done that. What do they do? But they know that it's a minimum of one fast that they've broken intentionally.
When you say they're heedless,
Perhaps obviously not caring about Ramadan specifically.
they know about the obligation or what?
Yeah.
No, basically, if somebody intentionally breaks their fast, then obviously there is kafara they have to do. Intentionally, deliberately eats or have sexual intercourse. If kafara is one kafara for Ramadan, I should have clarified this as well. So in the month of, that's according to the Hanafi Madhab. So if you violate by deliberately eating or having sexual intercourse, there's only one kafara. It's not that you have to kafara. If somebody does that for 10 days, you don't have to do 10 kafaras. You end up fasting how many days?
Yes.
For so many number of days. So only one kafara. So if somebody in the past missed 1 day or even 2 days over one particular month, intentionally, deliberately they eat, then there's only one kafara that they have to do. But if somebody did so out of weakness, okay, they couldn't fast, they couldn't, it's not something they brought it on upon, they deliberately did. Because sometimes a person might become so weak and so they can't continue. They might just faint, they feel I can't continue. They can break their fast and make up afterwards. And for such people, they don't have to do kafara. But if somebody intentionally violates the fast, obviously they have to make up for it. And if somebody who can't give kafara even, Brother Talha, okay, I don't know if you remember, we were paying attention when we talked about the hadith. If somebody can't fast 2 consecutive months, they have the option of feeding 60 miskin. Somebody asking question? He had his hand up. He's actually taking pictures.
Okay. Why is there a discrepancy between various mosques, from the same area or from the same road? In timetables, second time, iftar time. Why is that?
I don't know. You need to ask the mosque. I'm not an expert on that. There is the variation is based on the method they use. So I'm not an expert on that. But as awam, as general people, lay people, we just follow the majority. If our mosque has printed a timetable, a calendar, we go by that. We rely on that. So we shouldn't just say, okay, we're gonna, we shouldn't make up the time ourselves. We basically go by the local mosque calendar. And I think most people in this country, or in this locality at least, in East London and maybe other parts of London as well, they follow the East London Mosque timetable, which is fine. If you follow that, that's fine. The problem isn't only with the timetable, it's also to do with the moon sighting, the beginning and the ending of Ramadan. People use different methodology, and because of the differences in the methodology, they start their fast on a separate day, different days. Like for example, and I didn't go into the details about the moon sighting. Traditionally, there's been two views, okay, about the sighting of the moon. One view is that wherever the moon is sighted, everyone, no matter where they are, they have to start fasting. We have one sighting for the whole ummah, if you like. And then the other opinion is for every country, they have their own sighting, local sighting. And this is the opinion of the Shafi'i scholars, and it's also a minority opinion. For many, many years, I used to think that, and I was convinced by many people, in fact, and because this is also the majority opinion, I thought that, subhanAllah, in the golden age of Islam, this is probably how it all happened. Okay, this moon was sighted, and it was announced, and the whole ummah was fasting at the same time. But practically, I don't think that could have ever happened, because the ummah was so big, and how could they communicate with the different regions? So I think that what really happened in those days is that they followed their local sighting. Okay, and secondly, after the time, maybe this happened with the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the Khulafa, but after the rise of the Umayyads, the Abbasids, the Ummah became fragmented. You had different duwailat, you have for example, during the time of the Abbasids, you had the Abbasids in the east, and you had the Umayyad Caliphate in the west. So, I'm sure they had their own differences. I'm coming to that. So, today, what people do, people still have this opinion. So one opinion is that we go by one sighting. But then the question arises, which country's sighting do we go by? Because, we need to choose a place. So some of the people, some of the mosques and centers, they said we go by the sighting of Mecca. Because if we say Mecca, then people won't, question this. But if we say some other country, they will say, why that country? So there are mosques in London, like the coordination committee that announces the beginning of Ramadan, Islam Mosque, Al-Muttaqoon Islami, Regent's Park Mosque, and the Mayfair Islamic Center. They follow the sighting of Mecca. Okay, and it's based on the opinion, the majority opinion is that wherever the moon is sighted, but they basically said when the moon is sighted in Mecca, we fast. But there are still some people who follow the minority opinion, who say that we go by local sighting. But then again, there are some people who follow other countries, and that's also a problem. But there is a third opinion, which has emerged, and it's not something new as well. Some people say this is a bid'ah, is following calculation. Okay, established astronomical calculation, along with the sighting. And I think people like Shaykh Sulaiman Ghani and others, I think they are of this opinion. And they start the Ramadan and they end the Ramadan based on astronomical calculation backed by the sighting. Okay, and one of the scholars who supports this is Shaykh Yusuf al-Qardawi and many others as well. So this is another opinion that exists. And that's why, because of the differences in methodology, we have different days people starting and ending the fast.
Why is it not allowed to follow the scientific observations, like for instance, the Greenwich Mean Time observatory? They look at the moon. They say the sighting will be on Friday for this Ramadan, and Ramadan is likely to be on Saturday. Can we go by this? And what if the weather's cloudy, you can't sight it? Or what if Makkah, they can't sight it? What do you do then?
When the weather isn't, when the sky isn't clear, obviously the Prophet ﷺ said then you just complete the 30 days of Sha'ban. That's what people do. So even if it wasn't sighted on the 29th night, then they basically will complete the month as they won't say, okay, we're going to sight the moon tomorrow in Mecca. If it's not sighted, then they will say, if it's not on the 29th, then the following, we'll fast the following day, and after that we will do Eid. Why is it wrong? I didn't give a fatwa here. I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I'm saying that this is an opinion, and I personally respect that opinion, like I respect all other opinions. I won't say it's wrong or right. But the people who don't agree with it is because they say that the moon sighting itself is an act of worship. Okay? And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Sumu li ru'yatihi wa aftiru li ru'yatihi." begin your fast with the sighting of the moon and end your fast with the sighting of the moon. So specifically he mentioned the sighting of the moon, and this is how it has been done throughout. Okay, and in the past, people did use calculation, and some of the Shafi'iyya, if you look at Bidayat al-Mujtahid, there is mention of some of the scholars who allowed calculation, especially when the cloud wasn't so clear, when the sky wasn't clear. They used to use calculation, but this is a really, really minority opinion. And in those days, astronomy involved a lot of other. It wasn't as accurate as it is today, and it involved a lot of shirk as well. So I think that's the reason why majority of the scholars, almost there is a consensus against it in the past, where scholars say that it's not permissible at all to use calculation. But today, in this day and age, astronomical calculation is not the same as before. It is more accurate. In fact, the chances of mistake is very, very slim. It's almost like certain, right? So the scholars who say that it is okay, they use another hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which ironically is the same hadith that the scholars who disagree use against this view. But this hadith basically, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, we are an illiterate nation, right? He's talking about the sighting of the moon. He said, Ashahru hakada aw hakada. We are an illiterate nation. The month is either like this or like that, meaning it's either 29 or 30 days. So in those days, they were illiterate. They didn't know, they didn't have any other tools to determine the beginning of or the ending of the fast, except through these two means, either by sighting or completing the month as 30. So these scholars, they argue, if the Prophet ﷺ did have those, if they had the same kind of knowledge as we have now, then according to this hadith, as we understand it, the Prophet ﷺ would have used these methods. So that's their argument. I will take Brother Muttaqoon. Okay.
Quite a few of us here were young, I include myself in that. And with the summer holidays coming up, there won't be any school, or most of the youngsters here. Some don't work, some of us do work. But my question to you is, what advice and what recommendations can you give to our young brothers here in spending the time in the best way? What should they focus on? Because obviously they're going to have a lot of time in their hands. They're obviously long as well. A lot of them won't be working, and they won't be at school, so they have some free time. So how would you best what advice would you give to them? This is the best way that you would recommend you spend your Ramadan.
One of the things about Ramadan is that the rewards are multiplied. Okay, that's something that we need to bear in mind. And having free time is a blessing as well. So that means that we have more time to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, in the month of Ramadan, one of the things that we should do more and more is recite the Quran. Reciting it, even studying it, maybe even memorizing it, if you have time to do that. But I know in this year we're going to have a lot of temptation. It's summer on the one hand, a lot of free time. People on television, there are so many programs happening. And on top of that, you have the Olympic Games. People will be glued to their TV probably, want to know how Team Great Britain is doing. I think we need to, if we're really serious about our ibadah, about fasting and attaining taqwa, then we need to avoid all these things. Okay. If we really want to become the Muttaqoon, if we really want to reap the full benefit of Ramadan, then we need to be really serious. We need to be with people who are doing all these things, attend the mosque. Alhamdulillah, in the month of Ramadan, and it's summertime now as well, I'm sure there will be many activities happening across London, in different mosques, in different centers. Try to attend those. And try to be with those people who will remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, if in the month of Ramadan, I know that people run tajweed classes. Try to, enroll yourself in a tajweed class. In the mosque, in between iftar and in between asr and iftar, in many of the mosques I know, there are programs. Try to attend these programs, but try not to waste your time. Try to be with brothers. Do more and more ibadah, do more and more dhikr, do more and more tilawah, and try to cut down on things that waste, will cause you to waste time. Don't overeat and don't oversleep. These are two things that people do in Ramadan, unfortunately. They overeat and they oversleep. People, they eat so much. In Ramadan, we eat more than we do on normal days. And then what happens? There is a saying that whoever eats Whoever eats more, he drinks more, and whoever drinks more, he sleeps more, and whoever sleeps more, he loses many good things. So you lose your time, you lose barakah. You won't be able to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You won't be able to. So people, they will overeat and they sleep and they wake up at doing Asr time or maybe at Maghrib time. It's summer holidays now. Long days, subhanAllah, 9 o'clock. I might as well sleep. Okay, don't do all these things. The fact that you have more time means that there is more for you to gain from this month in terms of the reward. And the rewards are multiplied. The rewards are multiplied. The nafil prayer, they become like sort of prayer in terms of the reward. The rewards are multiplied. Imagine the Quran, right? About the Quran, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whoever reads a harf of the Quran will get a reward. And the rewards normally they will be multiplied 10 times. But in Ramadan they'll be multiplied even more, many, many times. Okay, so why would you want to waste that opportunity by watching TV all day or watching, subhanAllah, summertime, so many movies coming out, Spider-Man, Batman, whatever, all these other temptations are there. We need to go cinema and watch all these films. I know a lot of people are already making their plans. Spider-Man is here, Batman is coming, the last installment, whatever. We need to really take all these things out of our mind. Okay, if you really want to attain taqwa, you can't attain taqwa. Because if you come to Taraweeh, you know what you're going to be thinking about? You'll be thinking about dark night. Okay, so inshallah, I hope this advice helps brothers. And try to be with people who will make you do good deeds. And not be with people who if you're with people who always remind you of bad things, or cinemas, or television, or something else, try to avoid those people in Ramadan. For your own benefit. Be with people like Brother Muttaqoon and Talha, Brother Khalid there, inshallah, and Brother Mamoon, and the rest of the brothers. And inshallah, it'll be okay. Maybe we'll take one more question. Brother Khalid.
If anybody else doesn't have it.
If anyone does it, everyone. Oh?
My question is the most question.
You're the last question.
Maybe it's a little bit complicated. This regarding the moon cycle. You can just ask that. It's slightly different. Can you tell us more about the 13 degrees and the 18 degrees?
And like I said, I don't know much. I don't know how that works. I'm going to explain.
Okay, that's fine.